Okay, so you can see that there are 6 indicators, right? The first one is power distance. Okay, first to the extent to which the less powerful members, organizations, or the country accept and expect their power dispersed or distribute unequally. Okay, so basically, if you look at the data, okay, a high PD score in terms of ranking number indicates that the society accepts an unequal distribution of their power. People understand their own places in their own systems. Okay, they accept there is a large power distance between, and that this kind of society is much more hierarchical. Okay, and we can see that in the list that both Soviet Republic, one of the European countries in the Middle West, and also Malaysia from Asia, which rank 104th, are the countries with most power imbalance among their people. Okay, meaning that the hierarchy basically rules their society. And on the other hand, Austria, also being one of the European countries which rank 11th, is the country that the power distance is the minimum, and compared with the other countries, it has no hierarchical issues in their societies. It's kind of a comparative sense. Okay? And the second cultural element or dimension is called individualism. Okay? And this cultural dimension is used to measure the extent to which individuals are integrated into groups. Okay, so a high individualism score in terms of ranking number indicates a loose connection with people. Okay, so in country with a high individualism score, I think records the 91 is essentially United States. Okay, so it means that this kind of culture they are much more think about themselves. Okay, I think we explained it earlier. They really they put themselves in front of the groups. Okay, but with the society with a low individualism score, such as Guatemala in the Mid America, which they usually have a very strong group connection. Okay, and there will be a large amount of loyalty and respect for members of the group. Okay, and the group itself is also very large, and the people take more responsibility for each other. This is much more group oriented. In most Asian cultures, they're much more group oriented in a sense. And the third cultural indicator is called masculinity. Okay, so this cultural dimension is related to the distribution of the emotional roles between the genders. Okay, essentially, this measures how much a society stick with the values traditional male and female roles. And the high masculinity scores are found in countries where men are expected to be tough, to be the provider, traditional role, and to be very assertive and to be strong. Okay, Soviet Republic again gets the title as the country that possesses the most masculinity scores. And we can see that there is indeed very serious sexism in the society. And one of the very special countries in Asia also got the very strong masculinity scores is Japan. Okay, they have very serious sexism in the society as well. But a low masculinity scores do not reverse the gender role. It doesn't mean that if female got more power, it doesn't mean that. It just means that the roles, the gender roles are simply blurred. Okay, so you see women and men they can work together equally across many professions, and men are allowed to be very sensitive, and women can work hard for their professional success. So one particular country here is Sweden. Okay, and the next cultural indicator is uncertainty avoidance. So this cultural dimension is related to whether or not a society tolerance for a uncertainty or ambiguity in their life. Okay, so a high uncertainty avoidance scoring nation such as Greece, they try to avoid ambiguous situation whenever possible. They don't like ambiguity. They don't like uncertainty. They are governed by rules and orders, and they seek a collective truth. Okay, but a low scoring nation, uncertainty avoidance scoring nation such as Singapore, indicates that society enjoys a number of events and value differences. I think that's pretty much because Singapore is a rather new country. Okay, they're actually immigrants from most of Asia, and they like to explore the new. They're much more innovative in a sense, so they can tolerate the uncertainty in a sense. Okay, and the fifth dimension is called long-term versus the short-term orientation, and this cultural dimension is related to how much a society values long-standing as opposed to short-term traditions and values. And long-term orientation society tend to take the long view to planning and living. I think Taiwanese culture is much more long-term. Okay, one of the examples is that usually our parents will tell us to save the money for the future. Do you have the saving money culture? Yes? Okay. we do have the saving money culture in Taiwan as well. So we're much more long-term view, we're planning for the future. And long-term oriented society tends to take the long view, and most Asian countries like South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and China, even Singapore, okay, they are long-term oriented, and this is because they value the teachings of Confucius, Chinese philosopher, okay. And on the other hand, short-term oriented society focus more on the present, okay, and they do not value the traditions in comparative sense, such as Ghana in West Africa, which rank fourth with the minimal scores in the in this cultural dimension. Okay, and the final dimension is called indulgence, okay, which is basically about good things in life, okay, and a high indulgence scoring nation values and allows the relatively free gratification of basic and natural human drives relate to enjoy their life and having fun, and such as Venezuela, okay, this is one of the example here. And on the other hand, a low indulgence scoring nation, or we consider they are much more restrained in a sense. It stands for a society that surpasses gratification of needs and regulates it by means of strict social norms. Okay, one example here is Egypt. Okay, and here just to briefly introduce. I think most of you have learned this framework before, and you got the rankings. I uploaded onto both learning platforms. So here we're going to use the ranking to discuss the case. Okay, it's a practical case about Google's operation in China. It's a very iconic case when we talk about cross-cultural in international business activities. Okay. I also uploaded two separate case studies. One is about Google's operation in China before 2010. Okay. And the second case is about its operation in China after 2010. I say that 2010 as a break because they actually left China in 2010 and re-entered the Chinese market in the same year. Okay, so that's a very unique discussion about what happens then. Okay, and before we have the discussion here, two videos I'm going to show you. The first video is about the organizational culture of Google, and the second video is about its operation in China. What would be the challenges?
this whole license group. I mean, we always want you to hear it. And to me, I mean, the joke I tell is there's a sociological movement called total institutions. Criticisms, the example of total institution. I'm a making an army mental institutions. Something you check in but you never leave.
Some labels some Google policies as liberal paternalism, but he says the tech giant truly tries to be a force for good. Still, Googlers must have some gripes, right?
A lot of my passion is kind of in like social enterprise and social change space. And so part of my main reason was there wasn't quite the opportunity for me there at the time to sort of have those passions built.
A common refrain among ex-Googlers. Eventually, they may want to invest all those long hours on their own project.
Okay, so the first video for students who not familiar with the Google's organizational culture, know about Google's organizational culture pretty much to most of the Silicon Valley companies, right? They are fueling styles, but at the same time, they really focus on how to inspire their employees' productivity, right? And I don't know if you heard about that. Google, they once had an 80-20 rules for employees. What does it mean? 80-20 rules?
You
Yes?
spend 80% of your time working on your regular projects,
Mhm.
engagements, and then 20% of your time pursuing like individualized projects or like getting better at something, really to promote like independent creativity and pursue other.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that works just fine in the United States. But when they started to have their internationalization on the country, especially the ones into Taiwan, and use the same organizational culture like 80-20 rules, and it did not succeed, okay? Why? Because most of the Taiwanese people here, when you be given like 80-20 guidelines, but for instance, 80% of your time working on company projects and 20% of your time working on individual projects. If you really get a free time of 20%, what would you do? Yeah, go home. Or do something else, not really contribute to this company, right, or to your individuals. So that's a risky kind of policy when you migrate this kind of American culture to other countries. How the foreign employees will follow the rules, whether or not how to adjust your organizational culture. Okay, that's another. We're gonna talk about in later phase of the course. We'll talk about the organizational culture differences. Okay, and the second video I'm going to show you is very different from what you just seen in the first one. Essentially talks about its operation in China.
Google's headquarters in central Beijing. The Chinese flag is flying high outside. But the search giant's relations with the government have never been straightforward. And after 4 years and a lot of controversy, it's closed its mainland search service rather than self-censor any longer. 2 months ago, it threatened out the whole future of this operation, announcing that it would no longer remove sensitive material from search results on google.cn. It has several hundred staff on the mainland, and now it says it will keep its research and advertising teams here. But it's moving its Chinese language search service to Hong Kong, where laws will allow it to run uncensored. Yet results for searches on sensitive issues such as the Tiananmen Square pro-democracy protests will still be blocked by the government's own filtering systems. The dispute has not just highlighted the challenges for Western companies doing business here, it's also made the belief that the internet will inevitably bring freedom look rather shaky. Right now, China seems to be rather better at shaping the internet than the other way around.
Okay, very different atmospheres in the video, right? The journalists can't really get inside to interview with the employees in Beijing. They can only film their videos from outside the building. And you can see that as the conditions entered China, Google agreed to censor certain types of search results, especially those information criticized the Chinese government, right? You not only cannot search for the Tiananmen Square information, but also you can't search for Winnie the Pooh. Have you noticed that? In Taiwan, you can search Winnie the Pooh picture, because kind of illustrate their leader. Okay. In addition to institutional constraints resulting from the Chinese government intervention, there was many problems derived from the cultural differences between the United States and China, and therefore forced Google to withdraw from the Chinese market in the year of 2010. Okay. And so I uploaded 2 cases onto the learning platforms. So please take some time to review both cases and discuss it as a group. Okay. And I think the discussion question is on the second page of your group handouts. Okay. The first one, you need to identify the different rankings in the Hosted Project Dimension indices provided in the Excel file, and then use the rankings and the lecture and the case materials to talk about how the cultural differences between United States and China affect Google operation in China before and after 2010. Okay.
not just information, but
Asian countries are things difficult to be access to any information. But are you inclined to share any of the personal details by registering around themselves and any website? Yeah, there's a detail that like you will say I can tell you that when you buy something you get the receipt and so the enterprise has a genius system of having a lottery and you can look be like with solid and it actually encourages the sellers to predict
I was studying France and they told us, and tell your family so that bad actors do not tell you
your
because I'm not
as
seeing
you
this
guys
person
are
for this history.
direct transfer to your
I will not be good. And I was like, oh. And then I thought about that, so I was like, dang, I'm leaving here. It's like, well, what happened to my
156而已。
那好勉强，因为我那已经被落后到那个厂商的那个
但这张还有一个麦克风3000多，
加强的。
加起来就是18。
对，可是那个是要2个一起报的。
对。
那算了，换另外一个经费，就是你知道是哪个吗？
这个吗？
对。
哦好，就。
they seem to be a bit they hadn't really been out on the market and really they just felt that they had matched everyone else and why wouldn't you
They just, oh yeah, this price is so good, it's
do it?
Oh yeah.
Like everyone can go for an hour. It's so right because they
So like everybody
work to take a fair life, but actually they can
Not as the search engine, so they might still be like collecting data, advertising and whatnot.
So, but other days like this, you're actually selling information. It is interesting.
No, you can. What's the kind of people
So before it goes into
Oh, like that, no,
okay, so you're not
it just doesn't exist.
it's for 20% thing.
Yeah.
When I was in China, like,
blocking Chinese engineers from participating due to lack of trust. Yeah, right.
Also, compliance, actually sensitive to the part, if it was any types of research.
It's not. US, a lot of people don't realize it's not a country, like companies, it's from the government. So that's already a flawed understanding, but we have this right to free speech, or more of this freedom of the press and media, which is a religious right. So it's like Google can't censor your speech. Like it's literally a thing, but it clashes with the US Constitution. The government can't censor your speech. And so like while Google can like censor its employees, the
Everyone knows how powerful they get and what their ideas are.
Yeah, and they're asking as well, the executive, China's executive government relationship says that they need to work harder to potentially use customs.
Yeah, no, like, I get it, but that's
Yeah.
what makes it
It's quite
social
common.
media, like how much accountability are you supposed to like on that?
Yeah, you can have the same discussion regarding
Facebook,
fake news,
Twitter,
fake news, regarding like probably
There's like saved when one goes from Zoom. Yeah, at the same time.
not right.
yeah, that's who's the responsible, Spotify or
That's something
who's the responsible?
they're censoring libraries, so yes, you don't want to do that from that. But it is obviously
It's a bit less of a
organizational
suggestion rather than a physical thing, which is worth money.
you just don't. I don't know, like that's. I never thought about it like that. But I thought it was interesting how they said that like a lot of the censorship is by choice, which like in the, I think in the US especially, there's a lot of restriction, which I like just in general, but that really affects like how the news reports on it or how people perceive it. Like in the US, everyone's like, well, they're forcing their citizens to like be censored or whatever, and then everyone that you speak to is like, actually, they're like, oh, yeah, but not really. Like it's a lot more complex than just the government says you can't access this. Like so people go search in the first place. Like is it like that's a very interesting distinction that I think in the West.
I remember in one class,
Also,
it might be in the
Russia
same
was one of
like,
the things
we saw this video where it was two people they discussing like whether it was also about one of the media platforms, just like about if the CEO was like, yes, but we cannot do like you cannot choose. They were like, yeah, but you should tell. Yeah, they were like, you all the information that you have gathered, all the data, you should maybe give it to like the FBI or something if they are searching for certain people because in the site networks they are creating their own entities and they can then through the back door they can find us. And they were like, yes, but if we create a back door, we can do that. But if we do so, like what's to say that only the good people that want to catch the bad will get through it? Like if you have a back door, the problem is like who can use it or not. And then they start to discuss, exactly, and they start to discuss like, yes, but who is to say this is bad and this is good? Well, the law, yes, but still like by not opening up the door, for example, at all, like nobody can get in and nobody can access the information. You know, it starts to be like it's a valid point here as well. Because it's, like I understand who is doing, but in China they have a different way of thinking. Like even with the information, they don't even want to know everything. So we don't need to know everything. While like the Westerners are definitely not. The more you know, the better we can be well informed.
And also companies to like personalize.
Yeah.
Whereas the West,
That's something else.
it's very
The way
cool.
that
But I think it's more
when Google
it makes
open
the
their
individual
offices out there,
versus
like
team
how
think
it's so
what you need to do.
before it starts a new stage, but it's not as possible. So what do you need to have for that? While in China, like, I've heard about people going like one day and they stand outside of a factory and they're just being like quite out today doing so I'll come back tomorrow. Like that is not that's personalized change.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. Do you mind we postpone the discussion in the beginning of next lecture? Yeah, because obviously we don't have enough time. Yeah, only 3 minutes to have to the right. Okay.
basically said something like
Yeah, so probably you will work with the same teammates next week. Okay, we'll continue the discussion. Thank you for the participation today. Okay, see you next week.